Power BI and Copilot are a match made in heaven, right? All you have to do is type a question and it's going to confidently give you an answer based on your own data. And you think, wow, this is amazing. It's going to save me so much time. And it probably could, as long as you can trust it. Because the last thing you want is to go and repeat a number from Copilot in a meeting and then have somebody say it doesn't match their report. So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 simple steps that I do before I repeat any number from Copilot. I'm going to show you real examples of where it got it wrong, how to spot it, and what to look for. We start at that point where you've got that confident answer sitting in front of you. But the question still to ask is if you can trust it. Can you say that out loud in a room full of people? Because that confident tone from Copilot is absolutely guaranteed. Copilot never says, I'm not sure. Every answer looks the same, whether it's right or wrong. That's the bit you really need to be aware of. Let me show you what I mean. I asked Copilot how many employees were hired last year, and it has confidently told me 11, and that last year was 2023. But last year wasn't 2023. It just picked that as the year and presented it as a fact and moved on. And there's no note at the top saying AI generated content might be incorrect is going to save me in my meeting. However, I guess the good news is that Copilot's answer was at least somewhat grounded in the data because that is the right number for 2023. See, it can only query what exists in the report and the data behind it. So, unlike maybe some other AI tools out in the wild, it can't just hallucinate or make up facts. But it's not about never using AI or never trusting it. Copilot is genuinely useful. It's just about knowing what is and isn't right and when you need to check it, which is why I'm sharing these 3 things that you can easily and simply check each time. And the first thing is something that I don't see many people even thinking about because depending on which Copilot front door you use, you could actually be looking at different data. There's 2 main places that, as somebody who consumes reports in Power BI, you'll use Copilot. Let's start with Standalone Copilot. This is the chat you'll find on the Power BI homepage, and you'll also see it here on the left-hand side of a Power BI app, like this. And take note, because actually that's different from the Copilot button on the top right. Standalone Copilot searches across the entire organization's Power BI. Everything you have access to is in scope. So looking at it in action, I can ask it a question that I know that I have the answer to available in my data. And it has indeed pointed me back to the report that I would have expected. But what about if I'd had a report for EMEA and also a separate report for a global report? Well, this standalone version of Copilot can see both. It could pick either. So you really have to look at where that reference is coming from because you wouldn't want to be standing in a meeting presenting EMEA figures, but actually they are global. Now, the second place is the app Copilot, and that's the Copilot button that you find at the top right of the app. This one has a really defined scope. It sees only the reports and the content within that particular Power BI app. It even, in fact, gives you pre-existing suggested questions alongside the free text options. You can see I can ask a question and then it's answering only from what's within the app. It is contained. So step 1 is to check which front door that you've walked through, because standalone means that you're in the house, but the app Copilot is going to have you in the right room. So you'll know where Copilot's looking. But how do you tell if the answer is given you is actually grounded in something solid? Because Copilot's going to give you a nice text summary either way. And it's pretty tempting to use that and just move on. But that's actually where the trap is. When Copilot answers your question, it's typically going to give you 2 things: a text response and usually some kind of visual, a chart, a card, a table. It's in the text that you'll see the little citations, a little 1 or 2. And if you click on that, the exact visual within the report it's pulled the answer from should highlight. If it answers from an existing report visual, that usually means that somebody has purposely chosen the data within that visual. It's using measures and filters that were very carefully designed, and that's a really good sign. But remember that year example that I showed you earlier on where it got it wrong? Well, if we look at the citation, it says a little one and it's referencing the head count with changes visual. So Copilot did pull it from a real visual, but it still got the year wrong. The citation has told us where it looks, but it doesn't actually guarantee that it's right. That's why you need to check both the citation and the actual data in the visual. But if we frame our question differently, we not only just get pointed at that visual, but see that little check mark? This means now that this is a verified answer. So whoever's actually built the report has pre-approved that question and response combination. They've quality checked it from their side. And you can see verified answers in both places, standalone and within the app Copilot. So, step 2 for you is don't just read the text. Check the citation, check the visual it's referencing, and where possible, look out for that verified check mark. If it's there, you can be far more confident. And if it's not, then you're going to know that you have to maybe dig a little bit deeper before you use that number anywhere. But even if you're in the right place and the source checks out, that doesn't actually mean that the number is guaranteed to be safe. There's something else that I see catches folks out all the time. But what if you've accidentally descoped and ruled out some of your own data without realizing it? Because that is surprisingly easy to do. I may have done that. That's why I want to show you what I mean, because report page slicers, the filters that you see on the page, automatically apply to Copilot's answers when you're using that Copilot within the app. And that makes sense, right? But Copilot doesn't always make it that obvious which filters or slicers have been applied. There's a note about filters at the top of the response, but let's be honest, that's kind of easy to miss. So I want to show you why this really matters. So I've asked about December 2022, but look at the page. The slicer is only showing the last 10 months. So December 2022 is not within the range. But Copilot's come back to me with a number. And it's not told me that December 2022 is outside the scope because of the slicer. It's just answered it. And even if I go back to the chart myself, I can see it's wrong. Now what happens when I change the slicer and I copied the exact same question? So exactly the same words, but the slicer is different. I get a different number. This time, the right one. The chart now shows me December 2022 is 204. Earlier, with the wrong filter, it was 217. Same question, different filter, different answer. And the standalone app is the other way around. Page slicers don't apply at all. So you could be expecting a filtered answer, but you get an unfiltered one. So our third step is to confirm what filters and slicers have been applied, what time period, region, what's been scoped in or out. Because Copilot will give you an answer regardless. So you need to make sure that it's set up to give you the right answer. And I've got a bonus step for you. This one doesn't need any technical know-how because after scope, source, and filters, does this number make sense to you? You know the business. If the revenue dropped by 80% and nobody has mentioned it, or headcount halves overnight and this is the first time you're hearing about it, something's off. And look, that might seem like a really obvious step, but when you're really busy and you're prepping a deck and you're trying to coordinate everything else, it's all too easy to miss this one. So if something doesn't feel right, what you can do is ask Copilot for a breakdown. Or you can always check with the person who's built the report to try and get a little bit more context. So now you know how to get clarity and trust from what Copilot is telling you. But trust in your data is bigger than that because in so many cases, you've also got an Excel that predates the report, or maybe you need to do some extra calculations outside of Power BI, and now the numbers don't match. And that almost always comes down to one of four things. So why don't I show you which one it is in this next video?